2012. Please give a very warm welcome to Naomi Colvin.
Occupy!
It's 10 years since the collapse of Lehman Brothers brought the global financial system to a grinding halt. It's also 10 years since the decision was made that the costs incurred by a few should be socialised and borne by the many. As a result of the UK's reliance on financial services and the lax regulatory environment we have around these parts, a decade on, the UK is still experiencing its biggest decline in living standards since the war, and the longest lived. While the burden has been general, it has also been particular. Exacerbated by the harmful austerity policies of successive governments, the costs of the crisis have fallen disproportionately on those least able to bear them. The disabled, those on low incomes, the sick. If it's 10 years since the crash, that means it's nearly 8 years since that profound political failure brought Occupy London into being. In St Paul's Churchyard and eventually in 4 other sites in and around the square mile. In London, as elsewhere, Occupy was a spontaneous convergence of a range of forces, all brought together by a shared realisation that the current political system is deeply dysfunctional and a reset badly needed. As the initial statement collectively agreed on day 2 of the occupation stated, the current system is unsustainable, it is undemocratic and unjust. We need alternatives, and this is where we work towards them. Occupy was not anti-politics. It was deeply committed to finding commonly held positions on which to base a new politics. The first point from the economic statement agreed that December was that banks and financial institutions need to be accountable to society. And if there's one thing that being involved in Occupy demonstrated to me, it's that financial institutions and those who depend on them are deeply afraid of being held accountable. The numerous legal injunctions we received, some of which are still in force incidentally, the expensive PR advice we subsequently found out the City of London was receiving and being told to stay silent. The pressure being brought to bear on St Paul's Cathedral by central and local government, they all bear witness to that. So where are we now? Despite modest reforms and much agonising over institutional cultures, it's hard not to conclude that most of the concerns expressed by Occupy back then are still valid. Further scandals have come to light since, on LIBOR and the asset stripping of small businesses, with a conspicuous lack of accountability there either. One of Occupy's demands, in both the initial statement and the economic statement, is that regulators need to be genuinely accountable of the industries they regulate. It's important. The Financial Conduct Authority is clearly not functionally independent of the industry it regulates, and financial sector whistleblowers continue to suffer as a result. If we're serious about fixing the financial sector, it's beyond time we replace the Public Interest Disclosure Act with something that actually works. Occupy and everyone involved in it was correct to assert that the political system has to change before the financial system can be reformed to work for everybody. And it's there that we've seen the most dramatic changes in the past 10 years, some of which are pretty heartening. A broader range of voices are being heard, enabled by technology, including some who were completely disenfranchised before. New actors are putting life back into old structures. Fundamental to what Occupy was doing was increasing participation in decision making. As unglamorous as that sounds, and as tricky and cumbersome and painful as that sometimes was in practice, it was clear during Occupy that the more people who were involved in making those decisions, the better they were, the stronger they were. The return of mass politics won't be easy sailing either. Not always. But 10 years on from Lehman, as Occupy predicted, and I'm still very confident, it's the return of mass politics which gives us the most hope for the future. Thank you very much.